But Artie brought up something else. You have to, and you're going to have to hear this 25 times. We certainly did. But freedom. If I tell you now what I'm going to tell you at the end, you'll realize why I'm going to say it to you over and over, and you'll start to make this distinction. Is that guy, is everybody free? Do we believe that? So they'll say, Calvinists don't believe that. Reformed people, no, they're same people, some of them, they don't know what you mean. No, and I'm like, no, nobody believes in man's free will more than I do. I hope nobody ever lived who believes in it more. What I do know, though, there's a difference between free will and being what we call like a free agent, okay? So what I mean by that, every man's free to go to the left or the right. He could choose, right, this or that. But remember, if you're born in sin, you're born with a will. The question is that will going to choose what it wants to do? And the answer is absolutely. The problem with it is your will's corrupt. That's why we go through those passages like, Genesis 6:5. If you find a guy, right, and let's just say that it's Danny.
Okay, yeah.
So Danny's standing here, and Danny's born, and I say to you, I know you're Danny's dad, right? It's good. This is a great day. Now let's talk about Danny, right? When he can think and grow up, the thoughts and intents of his heart, are they always going to be evil? You're like, well, he's an innocent little baby. I'm like, listen, he's born in sin.
That's right.
Okay, he's going to show you the fruit of it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So he's already, at enmity by being born.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you think about it, you say, oh, I think, we have to wait until he's old enough to he's born in sin. And he's going to be proving it anyway 1,000 times. Right. A little liar. When he can speak, he'll lie to you, right? And so you think about it, and you say, okay, then Jeremiah, that passage in Jeremiah, right, where you're like, what? And you realize in 17:9, right, that men are just deceived, right? And you start saying these things, and you're like, they're rotten to the core. You start going through it, and you come to the Ephesians 2 passage, like we were talking this morning,
sure,
where he's dead in sin.
Sure.
And you're like, well, what does he mean? You have to wrestle with these things. Does he mean he's sick? Because ultimately, these guys who hold that view of the looking down the alley and seeing they'll say, he's sick. Bill's wrong, right? The old Billy Graham idea, which I detest, is Billy had this stupid visual thing where he'd be like, the guy's lying in his bed and he can't move, but he's still breathing on his own, and you don't put the soup into his mouth, but you bring the spoon to his lips. And I'm like, my God, man, that is not anything. Remember, like in 1 Corinthians 2, when he says, these things are foolishness to these people, right? You give them the truth and the gospel, and they don't get it. Why? Well, they're completely into this flesh thing that's got all these issues, right? Where they're free to do what they want. The problem is, every time Danny grows up and you give him a choice between doing the right and the wrong, he wants to go wrong, right? Because his nature is corrupt. His affections take him this direction, right?
Yeah.
So I say to you, he's free to do it, but I think it was, let me think who said it. I think it might have been Calvin who said that by use of his free will, he ruined his will. Okay, that's what happened. His will was free, and by use of it, he ruined it, free will, and made it this thing that's nasty, that's born into that little baby. And Danny's going to show you the fruit of it, whether he's 2, 4, 24, until something changes, right? Until he's recreated. That's why I'll say to you all the time, there's only 2 types of people on the planet.
Right.
They're created once and they're created twice. If you're recreated, right, now guess what happens? So you're going to see Paul address it here in a minute. And he's going to say, don't make a mistake. These people are doing what they want. Therefore, when they do wrong, are they guilty? Yes. So some, especially women, might say to you, but that baby couldn't help it. It was born. I'm like, I know, but there's not. You're acting like there's no connection between the father and the child.
Right.
And so that's what happened. Adam, the greatest crime of all times, right? Look how many billions of people have been affected by that.
Right.
So when you start to see it, you say, okay, so when Artie was recreated, right, or Danny, now guess what happens? It says they have a new heart. So their affections are now different. Right now, when they get a choice between I can go left and do the wrong thing, or I can go right and do the right thing, they have the ability now, in fact, the inclination to go do the right thing. So when you come to Romans 7, you're like, Paul didn't even get this down. I'm like, Paul didn't tell you that there wasn't a war. Remember, already talking about sanctification. It's this irreconcilable war going on inside you, right?
Sure.
Right now.
Yeah.
The people at this table.
Yeah.
But over time, will the ascendancy go to, blessed be the Lord. I want to please the Lord, right? You should see that. That's why when we look at people's lives and say, Guy Clem's had been a Christian for 35 years, right? And you're like, there's no fruit, meaning none of this what he does. It's what Ralph Waldo Emerson said. Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. But we tend in church, people in the world are smart enough to know that about employees. We get in the church, the guy gives you the mouth stuff about his love for Christ, and he shows none of it for 35 years, and we say, who knows? And I'm like, I got a pretty good idea, old Abner never was converted, right? Because, look, the Holy Spirit is relentlessly, like in Philippians 2, right? Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So that makes you responsible.
Right.
But then he says, what? Because the Spirit's at work in you. And I always say, if the Spirit quits working in Artie, Artie's undone. Artie's strength will be like a Kleenex against a gale force wind. But on the other hand, once the Holy Spirit is indwelling Artie, is he going to protect him, hold him in God's, it's being held in God's hand again kind of idea, right? Where no matter what, when that nature's changed, it may be ugly in some of these things, right? And a man can fall away for a period of time. Did you ever feel like you did that in the process? You're a Christian, but you harbored private sins, secret sins, right? And you quit studying, you quit praying, and guess what happens? You withdraw from God. In other words, you don't say to God, I'm going to withdraw for a season, but you have withdrawn. And you know how what God normally does? He says, fine, have your way, I'll withdraw from you. Go for it. Now you got this, now you're really buried, right? And now you begin to say, I don't even know if I belong to it. See? But in some cases you have to say to people, you know, I don't know if you do either, right? But this is how this is the time to find out.